Hello, good afternoon. Today we're going to be looking at proportional relationships with graphs. We're continuing this lesson from yesterday. If you recall, yesterday we looked at how we could recognize if if a graph showed a proportional relationship or not. Today we're going to continue with that, and you'll be finding the constant of proportionality from that graph. So by the end of the day, you'll be able to interpret a proportional relationship graph, and you'll accomplish this by determining if the graph has a constant of proportionality and what that constant of proportionality might be. So how can you tell if a graph represents a proportional relationship? Go ahead and remind yourself, how do we know if a graph represents a proportional relationship? All right. If you recall, a graph is proportional if it is a straight line. So it must have both of these things. It must be a straight line, and that means both of these must be true, and it must pass through the origin. Which is 0.00, right? Both of those must be true in order for us to determine if it is a straight line. Go ahead now and let's see if you think this one is proportional. Okay, what I'm going to have you do is when you answer this, you're just going to put 1, 2, 3, 4 in your answer so you can answer them all at the same time. And all you're saying is proportional or not proportional. All right. Let's take a look at this first one. Is this first one proportional? Well, it is a straight line. However, remember, both things must be true. It must be a straight line and it must go through the origin. This one does not pass through the origin. So this one is not proportional. Let's go ahead and take a look at number 2 here. Is number 2 a straight line? Yes, it is. Does number 2 begin at the origin? Yes, it does. So is it proportional? Yes, this one is proportional. Looking at number 3 here, let me move my writing tools there. So this one does begin at the origin, so that's looking good. However, it's a curved line, so this is not proportional. And finally, number 4. Number 4 starts at the origin, and it's a straight line. It's a straight line and starts at the origin. Both of these things are true, so this one is proportional as well. All right, so that's just review from what we looked at yesterday. Let's go ahead and move forward now with the new stuff. So if a relationship is proportional, then there exists a constant proportionality. And remember, our constant proportionality is the same as our unit rate. So we're looking for what is the y value when x is 1. So if you remember, our constant proportionality, which we represent by k, is y over x. And when we're looking for the unit rate, we're looking for when our denominator is 1. So you're looking for our constant proportionality. Is that y value when x is 1? Let's go ahead and see if we can do this with some graphs. So here's our first example here. And so the question is, what is the constant of proportionality? Okay, and they want you to write your answer as a whole number or decimal. So what I'm going to do on this graph here is I'm going to find a lattice point. I can use this point here. I could use this point here, looking for where my line intersects with two of those, the XY coordinates, right? Call that a lattice point, okay? And I can use any of these points. This one here is 1, 3. This is 2, 6. And this one here is 3, 9. Now we can take any of those data points to find our constant of proportionality. Okay. We'll just start with this one here. Let's start with this one here. Okay. So when x is 3, y is 9. So that means that our constant proportionality is 9 over 3. Now remember, our constant proportionality is this value when the denominator is 1. Right? So 9 divided by 3 would be 3. So our constant of proportionality is 3. Now this graph, we can spot it right here. Because again, when x is 1, what is the value of y? Well, right here, we see the value of x being 1. So what is y? Well, then that, when x is y, that is our constant of proportionality. Now our graph isn't going to be always go through a point where x is 1 like this on a lattice point, so we might have to use another point to figure that out like we see here. Go ahead and I guess look at this one and see if you can find the constant of proportionality. All right, so again, our constant proportionality is going to be y over x. And it's specifically going to be when x is 1, right? And this, again, is a nice problem for us to do because we can see right here, when x is 1, y is 8. So that tells me right there that my constant of proportionality is 8. So k equals 8. Okay, this is another example here now. Now this one is not so straightforward. If we look at when x is 1, we can't necessarily tell what the y value is here. We could approximate, maybe it's 2, maybe it's 2.5, but we can't quite tell. So this is, again, where we need to go along this line until we find a lattice point where it intersects with an xy, with our xy coordinates there. Well, what point is this? This is 5, 10. Now we're just going to take that to find our constant of proportionality, which is y over x. And we're going to put our y, which is 10, over our x, which is 5. And we see that that would reduce down to 2 over 1. So our constant of proportionality is 2. Right? Y over x, what's y divided by x? Y divided by x is 2. Again, we didn't have the luxury of going right to this point when x is 1 and finding out what the y value is. We can't quite tell there. Again, we could have approximated, but we don't want to approximate. We want to be exact. So we had to come and find this lattice point here in order to figure out what our constant of proportionality is. Go ahead and see if you can find the constant of proportionality for this one. Note here too that this is 2, 6. Okay, so we're looking for when x is 1, what's the y value? Go ahead. All right. Again, constant of proportionality is the ratio of y over x. And we're going to go along this line till we find a lattice point. There's one right there. And that point there is 2, 6. And so let's go ahead and put our y of 6 over 2. Well, 6 divided by 2, that is 3. So our constant of proportionality is 3. Now, some of them will have you graph the relationship after they give you some information. So let's go ahead and read this out loud. In her computer science class, Pam is learning how to program computer games. For her final project, Pam is creating her own multi-level game. It takes Pam 1 week to program each level of her game. Okay, there's a proportional relationship between this, so they're telling you it's going to be a straight line, it's going to go through the origin, and they want you to graph the relationship by selecting 2 points. So again, it takes her 1 week for each level. So here's the levels. For one level, it takes her 1 week. So for 2 levels, it's going to take her 2 weeks, right? So we can see that this line is going to go right along here. And there you have that line. Now, in Edpuzzle here, I can't have you graph this, so there's not going to be a question to have you graph it. However, what I would like you to do is figure out what's the one XY coordinate that you can graph based on the information that is given up here. Go ahead and read this through and figure out what's the one XY coordinate that you can start by plotting on the XY, on our XY coordinate here, on our coordinate grid. All right, so let's go ahead and read this. After a shipwreck, Brendan is stranded on a desert island. He needs to build a shelter so he can make an axe using materials from the wreckage and starts cutting down trees. Brendan cuts down 6 trees per day. Okay, 6 trees per day. So what is that point there? Let's go ahead and see. He does 6 trees per 1 day. So that point there is 1, 6. Again, we got to pay attention to what our x coordinate represents and what our y coordinate represents. And then you would be able to graph these by attaching 0, because in 0 days, he's going to cut down 0 trees. In 2 days, he'll have cut down 12 trees. Then we're going to just go ahead and in IXL, you'll be able to make this line much straighter than I am able to. All right, awesome. And that's what we've got for you today. To practice, here's what you're going to be working on in IXL. So K4, that's going to allow you to find the constant of proportionality. Okay, graph a proportional relationship using the slope given. That's what we just looked at there. And then this one here is what we looked at yesterday, interpret graphs of proportional relationships. Go ahead and have fun with that. And we'll see you back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.